Bengal Chamber that the name should be Sustainable Energy, a Transformational Journey. Because we believe that it's a real transformation. So we are going to have. So this was the name finally accepted. And then we have most of the chapters are basically interdisciplinary in nature. Because we make the disciplines for our own convenience. But nature, solutions, real solutions and nature doesn't know any discipline. It's a mixture of the disciplines. So these actual chapters are here also in interdisciplinary nature. So, committed chapters we have got 40 total chapters. And in fact, today morning we had some discussions with Springer, and they are planning it even going for more than one volume. So let's see what happens finally, how many chapters we get into the reviewed form. So the contributions are from these countries, and concepts include both theoretical and some of the issues are practical issues. I mean, even going from lab to land concept. Some contributions are there in that directions also. And then how it was done. How it was made actually. Initially it started all with March 2015 when that Norwegian group came to visit under this program. We had a meeting and the Bengal Chamber is kind enough to invite us to present in their Energy Environment Committee meeting. It was a strong interaction started and really speaking we have got very good response from some of the Indian industry, at least to listen to the academia. They are in collaboration. So then we have the presentation of the meeting and then the people got interested. And then even we are grateful to CESC, Calcutta Electric Supply Corporation, and their best possible plant, Bajbaj, we visited. Because we thought that in advanced countries, the overlap or collaboration between academia and industry is pretty strong, but in India it's not that level. But let's try, see what happens. So we have certain presentations. Professor Mohsen Asadi presented because they have got lots of work in the European energy sector for improvement of performance of power plants. So he shared his experience, technological experience, with one of the best power plant company in India, or rather in Kolkata. So they listened to us with full concentration. And then they allowed us to visit their facilities and opportunities what they have. We tried to started interactions. Then we entered into a program of education. There the concept was what I mentioned at the very beginning, that the sustainable energy, what it is, what should be the direction of that education, how education should take that curriculum and syllabus depending on the feedback and real need. And obviously, it cannot be uniform or universal. That has got certain geographical significance too, we believe. So we started discussing with people from different countries, and whoever available, they can give their own vision, and we have made it a combined report, and there was a lot of interactions on that. This was the inaugural panel consisting of both industry and academia. Then we have the industry education interaction, the second phase. That I'm sure that some of the people who are present here, they were also present in this particular program. So we tried to consolidate what is the idea of sustainable energy in collaboration with industry and academia interactions mode. And then finally, we were encouraged with the Norwegian Council of Kolkata. She came to meet us, and there is another meeting in 2016, November. We are progressing in this direction. Then it is when, means our project time schedule. Yeah, we will have our time schedule conceptualized. It started in 2017, February. Rather, we have a tight schedule. We discussed with Springer. They also accepted that particular concept. They think that this particular publication may be useful for a particular section of or rather many of the people who are working in the energy sector. And I'm really grateful to Mr. Deve Mukherjee, who actually encouraged us that we should proceed. And I must be grateful to Shubhadeep and Angana. They had several meetings in spite of their busy schedule to carry forward this particular concept. Then the IIT Bombay Professor Shantanu Bandyopadhyay also joined hands with us because he has got experience of that editing process for a long time, and he is working in the energy sector area. So we have the so-called, but our target date is pretty close, December. So obviously we are working hard with 40 chapters, at least 2 reviews for each of the chapters. That means 80 reviewers number required. And then getting everything done within 2 to 3 months, it's a really difficult job. So at the end, I must request that those who want to make reviews of chapters, please contact me. I need desperately good reviewers from industry, both academia and industry. So if you contact me, then I can share my ideas in more detail. Then who are the people involved in this? I must say that all people cannot be just listed. So officially 4 people are responsible for delivery. These are the 4 people who will actually be responsible for delivery of this particular volume. The people are obviously myself, Professor Asadi, here in the dais. Shantanu was supposed to come, but unfortunately he couldn't because due to some family constraint. He's from IIT Bombay. He is also giving lots of input into this volume. Then summary and carry forward. Let's see what are the summary. We are going to have one international edited volume from Springer on this particular issue. We will have the specifically Indian issues are substantially covered in this particular volume. In fact, one of the speakers here, respected speaker here has contributed that particular chapter with respect to the so-called coal-based dependence of India. How much we are dependent on coal. How can we just can't deny it. We have to accept. It's a part of the sustainable energy effort. Then academia industry contributions both are there from India and abroad. The people are different perspectives are also very clear in this particular volume. So you'll find out how the perspective changes with respect to geographical locations. Then obviously these are basically interdisciplinary, has to be, there is no option. Then we have the editing groups are basically 4 institutes, Jadavpur, IIT, Bombay, then University of Stavanger, Norway, and obviously industrial partner is Bengal Chamber. Then obviously again I'm reminding that we are under pressure to deliver it by December because our project is not only getting closed, we have a definite target of, on the basis of that, carry forward certain things. That's why we are under pressure. So the carry forward means, what I mean to say that it's undoubtedly it has to be interdisciplinary, some new applications, regulations. Obviously, in the previous sessions from the national leaders of the energy sector, we have realized that this has to accept whether we like or dislike. Then new knowledge and skill development is very important to feel. Unless we have trained technicians, not only the at the R&D level, but maintenance of things are very important, new things are coming up. And understanding regulations is very important for the industry. Unless they understand the regulations, they cannot just go into that directions. So we are trying to, we have identified that manpower training is an important issue. So we need to work together successfully if we can, then it can be of good use. Then obviously, what we have discussed finally, and I must say that Mr. Devi Mukherjee is carrying forward that particular in that direction. If we can have a successful business model for the knowledge or resource platform, which will basically give a sharing of ideas and concepts from different parts of the globe, and there can be an interactive way, then that can be a very useful thing. How much will be successful, we don't know. We have started this. This will end up with a volume, international volume. Let's see the reactions. We will try to carry forward that. Thank you.
Request for the forward
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
First part is, I have already mentioned that the review is important. Those who wants to review the chapters, please contact me. And second part, I will never have such a golden opportunity because we have submitted the book proposal to Springer with all the other things, but there is a scope for forward writing. If I request Dr. Ajoy Mathur to write the forward, because this is the golden opportunity for me to give this particular consent. Sir, will you kindly agree to write the foreword of this book? That's my opportunity I have taken, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sudipto. Thank you, Mohsen, for your great role in this publication. We are really running against time now. We have 2 very interesting presentations. The success stories on sustainability, one from ITC. So Sanjeev, if you could please address us, followed by Anirban, who is going to have a very interesting take on sustainability. Or am I letting the cat out of the bag?
Good evening, everybody. First of all, at the outset, I would like to sincerely thank the Chamber that you felt that our story is important to tell in such a august gathering. And I think it's also important that all of us mentally shift gears a bit, because now we are going to talk about slightly issues which are very specific to industry. So we are talking from coming down from a very high perspective to something nearer ground level. So, which would limit the vision that we see. So, I mean, that is our circumstances. I want to excuse myself from that. Coming to the ITC story, we are a company which has a group turnover of around $8.5 billion. We are present around 13 verticals. There's some of the big ticket items. We've been capturing and sequestering more carbon than CO2 than we emit for the last 12 years. We've been harvesting more water than we withdraw for the last 15 years. We're recycling more waste than we've been generating for the last 10 years. But each of these achievements actually also lay down the path for what needs to be done in future. Because we may be sequestering more CO2, but the fact remains that we are still emitting CO2. So the question is that, do we have a solution for it? How do we progress towards that? We've been talking about harvesting more water, but there are unit-specific water security issues. There are water stewardship issues, which we are addressing. And today we have around 5 river basin level projects going on, covering typically an area of around 3,000 square kilometers, where we are working towards achieving water security for each and every stakeholder. Similarly, in the question of recycling waste, we have been recycling the waste we generate in our factories, but the larger issue of post-consumer packaging waste remains. And though we have initiated work on that, and we are quite hopeful that we will be able to achieve a solution, but it is still work to be done. We touch the lives of almost 6 million people, and which again brings a responsibility, because so many people are affected by our businesses. It is important that we do it in a responsible manner. Across ITC, total energy consumed, 48% comes from renewable resources, and this is a combination of electrical and thermal. We have solid waste management programs which touch over 6.4 million people, and around 30,000 metric tons of waste is managed annually. In terms of our journey towards a low carbon future, obviously the importance of reducing our carbon intensity, our energy intensity more specifically, I'll speak a bit more about that. We've set a target that by 2020 we would like to meet 50% of our total energy demand from renewable resources. It's quite a struggle, but we are hopeful that we'll get there. And for what we emit, we do focus a lot on carbon sequestration through afforestation of degraded lands. And this is important not only for the fact that carbon is captured, but it has huge plus effects in terms of avoiding runoff, improving soil nutrient value, which has multiple benefits. So if we look at ITC's overall energy consumption, 85% of our total energy demand is actually in the form of heat. We need heat in our processing factories, in our paper factories, and only 15% of energy that we consume as electricity. So when we are talking about renewable options, we are essentially talking about targeting only this 15%, because there are significant challenges in how do you meet your heat energy from thermal. And today our thermal energy, if you look at it, 48% is coming from renewable sources, 52% is still fossil based. Electricity, it's almost 51-41, the split. And if you kind of get into it in more detail, our overall split between fossil and renewable is 48, and around 3% is the electricity that we buy from the grid. And bulk of it in terms of fossil fuel is coal consumption. So if you are to really look at reducing our carbon footprint, the lesson that we have learned is that renewable energy is not the only solution, because even if we kind of buy up all the renewable energy possible, we'll be only able to address our electricity portion. There are huge challenges on the heat energy side. So we do realize the fact that coal is very much part of our future in the short and medium term. And the large question remains of where will the thermal energy come from? In the Indian context also, our understanding is that almost 40% of coal usage is actually for heat, and we are not even talking about the other forms of fossil energy. So overall, you may well find that it may be, I would like to be corrected, but maybe it's a 60-40% split in terms of thermal and electricity. And the discussions that are happening about renewable is still only about electricity. So this is whether in terms of policy, in terms of the numerous other challenges in how we would access heat energy from renewable resources remain. But our focus, like I said, has been to reduce our carbon footprint, and the first step in that carbon footprint reduction is to reduce our energy intensity. It has been important for us to understand where our energy is being consumed. I remember when I joined ITC quite a few years ago, and one of the directors I was talking to, and he said that if I go through the annual reports, and actually by now we should not be consuming any energy, because every year, people report around 5%, 10% reduction in energy consumption. So he said, how come you're still consuming energy? So there are obviously issues about how data is captured, how data is understood. So we invested a lot in creating a data system which covers all our 400 plus business units across the country. There are over 1,000 fields which are defined with SOPs for each of these categories. So in terms of how would you record coal consumption, the type of coal, the calorific value. And this allows us to set performance indicators. These are set business-wise, so that each business would have to achieve this kind of a renewable energy component. Their energy consumption per unit of production would have to be so much, which is in turn translated to each manufacturing unit. So this allows us to do it. And like I said, it also allows us to establish standard operating procedures and have auditability of the whole issue of energy. We've also focused a lot on investment on green infrastructure, and lead obviously has been an important part in this journey. We have around 13 ITC hotels, including this one, 4 ITC manufacturing units which have LEED Platinum rating. Others are there with gold rating. These are some of our properties which are all LEED Platinum rated. And we do with pride call ourselves the luxurious, with the greenest luxury hotel chain in the world. This is the world's largest LEED Platinum rated hotel, which is in Chennai, with around 600 rooms, around 100,000 square feet of banqueting facilities. This is the world's first LEED Platinum data center, which manages the backup data for all the entire ITC group. And the next step, obviously, after you look at energy conservation and reducing your energy intention, is that this carbon that you're still generating, the sequestration part, which we do through our social and farm forestry initiatives. There are multiple models here, and we are increasingly moving to the agroforestry model, so that in same plot of land you not only grow pulpwood, but you also grow agri-crops without losing on productivity in any sense. And wastelands to forest is something which is very big, and at present we cover over 160,000 hectares in terms of afforestation. So in terms of the road ahead, like I mentioned, the immediate target is that by 2020 we will achieve 50%. That is a key area. We also strongly support this whole issue of public disclosures, because it brings about transparency, it brings about accountability. We will be going forward bringing more of the value chain under our reporting boundary. Though ITC to a large extent is vertically integrated, we have very little manufacturing which is outsourced in terms of absolute volumes, but that also we will be bringing it in. And the important part is that as a business, the sustainability performance and your business performance are two aligned issues. They are not separate issues. So if a business has to, when it sets its business goals, there are also sustainability goals which come along with it. Renewables, we do have a lot of questions. We have questions, I mean, it has been addressed by the panel. The previous speakers have spoken about it. We are also worried about what this focus on renewables will do on grid stability, because, I mean, I was a power engineer at some point in my career, and questions about a system which was not at all designed for distributed generation, how it is going to work. We have questions. There are issues about interstate transfers. And would we get into a model where something happened to telephony the same way and internet access? I really don't know, but we have questions about that. And in the end, just to conclude, whatever we have done, this gives us our ITC's group turnover, which started from around 10,000 crores in 2001 to around 50,000 crores in 2016-17. This has been our business turnover, and the number of business units have gone up by around 45%, the manufacturing units during this period. But if you look at our CO2 emissions, they've actually come down, okay? And this is something that we are very, very proud about. And if you look at our sequestration, this is the way it has increased. So this is in the end our bottom line, because whatever we do, and if this is what we could achieve, we certainly are very proud about it, but we are not going to be complacent, and we will hopefully be able to meet Mr. Mathur's goal of having no CO2 emissions at some point in the future. Thank you very much.
For sharing the ITC success story. And finally, it's going to be Anirban Ghosh, the Chief Sustainability Officer from the Mahindras.
So, here we go. Just open. Right. This is the one. Change color. Take it. Take it. Perfect. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You must be really relieved that this is the last speaker on stage now. It is my privilege to be here on the 10th edition of this conference. Congratulations to you, Deb, and to the Bengal Chamber. 10 years ago, the Bengal Chamber must have been a pioneer if it was having a conversation on energy and changes that were going to happen in energy. Maybe once again we can say what Bengal was talking about 10 years ago, India is talking about now. Well, I must thank you, Deb, for giving the prodigal son a chance to return to Calcutta. I too was very caught up with this idea of a visionary address. I don't know whether it has sunk into me yet. I remember mentioning it to my wife. She hasn't stopped laughing yet. And since I was coming to Calcutta and I was meeting my school friends, many of whom are gentlemen now, they said many things which I can't mention to you, but what I can say is that they were not gentle. So these gentlemen and I, when we were growing up, and I suppose we are contemporaries with many of you, one of the conversations we would often participate in was how we must be careful about using fossil fuel, because we would run out of fossil fuel very soon. It's come full circle now. Today's conversation is how we must not use 2/3 of the fossil fuel that we have in the earth today if we want to ensure that the earth survives. And therefore it's not strange, as Mr. Bhattacharya said, that we have coal, but nobody wants it. A similar story is likely to play out with petroleum. And there would be geopolitical ramifications, which we are not talking about at this conference today. Interestingly, the biggest a conversation on energy for the future called Future Energy Forum is hosted by one of the largest producers of oil in the world, Kazakhstan. And it's a 3-month-long conference, a 3-month-long exposition. But the one thing that stayed with me from that exposition is that if we are able to harness the renewable energy in its various forms that exists in the earth, we have more energy than we need for the next 1,000 years. Therefore, the problem is not whether the energy exists. The problem is figuring out ways of harnessing the energy, and it's not just solar. Apparently, there are 6 such sources. The circle is playing out in many different ways. And here we heard about how we went from DC to AC, and are likely to go back and see a change to DC again. Now, as all of these things happen, very clearly, like Dr. Mathur said, life will be very different. Very different from the way we know it now. For one, we will be healthy longer. Most of us will probably not be around, but our children and our grandchildren, if the earth were not to go away, could well be living for 100 years or more on the average. And the kind of developments that are happening in prolonging life, here's just one example where the world's first full body transplant happened this year. We will all live in very strange places. Places which are strange not just on the surface of earth as in land, but we could well have places on water to live in. And here is one where they're saying about 500 odd people will be living in the first floating city of the world by 2020. We will grow some of our own food. It might sound strange. Some people like growing plants. But it is eminently possible to grow some part of your food, however small your apartment may be. And I'm mentioning that because I live in Bombay, where apartment sizes may be about the size of your drawing room in Calcutta. But it's entirely possible. And the picture here is of a vegetable garden of a 1-bedroom apartment in Dubai. Some say that we're going to fly. This thing should be moving. It's not. So I don't know if you can spot the drone there, but the possibility of having municipal transport, which is in the air and not on the ground, is not a dream anymore, because 200 such successful flight tests have been done, and at various shows around the world, you can see this happening. In fact, just the other day, a couple of days ago, I think Delhi airport was shut down because of a drone somewhere near the airport. So drones carrying people, though this one was not carrying people, drones carrying people is not far away. So even if this were not to happen,